Hello, and welcome to Living Education eFocus News. I'm your host, Dr. Mike Robinson. Living Education eFocus News is sponsored by Force of the Rain Productions. Their mission is to expand the voices of the seldom heard in education, for housing, parental and family engagement, academic research, the business of education, and civic involvement. Joining me on this episode of Living Education eFocus News is Ameer Baraka. Ameer is here to discuss achieving success and reaching goals despite dyslexia. Hello, Ameer, and welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Oh man, it's my pleasure. I follow you on social media. We had an opportunity to talk several times before, and I wanted to make sure I circle back around. And it's been a while since we've had an interview. I want to talk about how you've been moving through this world, man, with some challenges you've had, and maybe inspire other people who have similar challenges.
Yeah, well, absolutely. Well, I think that's the purpose that God has placed on my life. I know it beyond a shadow of a doubt, man. I am here to be a living witness and a light that change is definitely possible.
Typically, Ameer, what I would normally do is have a person to share a little bit about their background, anything else you want to share before we get into the questions. But I'm going to pivot from that for a brief moment. I want to open up by saying, would you mind sharing about something I see as significant that just happened to you in your life, a significant award that you were just informed of? Can you share a little bit about that with our audience?
Well, absolutely, man. By God's grace, man, I've been given an Emmy Award for Best Life Story on Wednesday. The Emmys were on Wednesday in Orlando, and a news reporter had been talking to me about my life story, and so we put a story together, and it went up there, man, and won the Emmy. So I'm pretty stoked about that. I'm grateful for that. When you look back at the hell I've been through in my life and how God could take that hell and use it to win the Emmy, it's all worth it.
Man, your story is powerful. It's funny because we here at Force of the Rain Productions, we keep ongoing data about our content. Who's doing what content is being viewed, how long a person is on the page, and all that kind of information that is important for us and our sponsors. And man, it hasn't been more than 2 or 3 months where your content is not necessarily trending on our website. And that content, honestly, was probably about 2 or 3 years ago. So your name still resonates. People still are researching you, and when they come across your story on our page, they're listening to it. So I thought, man, what better way to close out the year and open up the new year with revisiting your story and talking about a little bit about what's happening with you now. But before you do that, can you share a little bit about your background, and we can get into the rest of it as we speak?
Yeah, well, you cut me off when you think it's enough. Formerly incarcerated, completely illiterate, learned to read at 23 years old. I entered a prison system at 23, was reading on the third grade level, was completely illiterate. Both brothers and sisters read exceptionally well, came out of poverty. I don't think poverty makes you commit crime. I think poor morals and poor value makes you commit crime. I think what poverty does is poverty makes you get a fire under your butt and go out and do something, man, and something positive. And so I was able to do that. Father was a drug addict. He and I sold heroin together. We snorted heroin together. We smoked crack cocaine together. Mother was very, very well much, I would say, derelict in her duty as a mother. I had a grandmother who was had a third grade education, but she believed that the only way that the Negro was going to get out of poverty was through education and hard work. And so she had an insatiable appetite to make sure we learned to read and write. And she went as far as putting the words, your spelling words in your hand. If you didn't know your spelling words on Friday, you were in trouble. And I got a lot of spankings, man. And because I didn't know my spelling words because I was dyslexic, and at that particular time, it went undiagnosed, and she was completely oblivious to the disability that I was functioning with as a child. And so one thing led to another: street life, prison, blah, 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 man. If you name it, I've been there at the bottom of life, man. And I crawled my way out. And, boy, I've been crawling, man, by God's grace, man. But I tell you, I tell every young brother that I know, I come to know the Lord around 23 when I got into a prison cell, man, and I never looked back. He's been faithful. And that's the only way. That's the only way you're going to get out of the clutches of the enemy, man, because this dude got a stronghold on our young black youth, and more importantly, the whole world as we see it right now today. So it's a war going on, man. It's a spiritual war going on, and you can't see it, but you can have victory. You can have victory, man. And I'm seeing a lot of people not making it is because they're choosing the way of the world. And so I'm not choosing the way of the world, choosing the way of the kingdom, and that's everything. That's just how I roll. That's how I function. And so if you don't like me, that's on you. I'm a king. I'm a king.
Absolutely. I can attest, man, just from reading, following you, talking with you, being able to shoot the breeze with you on occasions, that you absolutely are a testament to the fact that won't God do it? Because He's done it for you in your life, and hopefully because the way your life has played out in a lot of public ways, that it has been impactful to other young people. You mentioned you had a disability, and some people may not call it that. You may not call it that anymore. How did you discover that you had dyslexia?
Well, I discovered that I was dyslexic while in prison. Fortunately, there was a teacher in the prison who just wanted black men to learn to read. I was shipped out on a bus that I think we traveled about 300 miles. And on that bus, it was 33 men, and only one of us had a high school diploma. And the rest of us, we read on second, third, fourth, fifth grade levels, man. And because you're screened when you go into the penal system. And so I told the teacher that I wanted to learn to read. And he knew that I read poorly. He said, listen, Amir, if you want to learn to read, come sit in front of the class. And so I sat in front of the class, and he knew I struggled. He asked me, were my brothers and sisters, were they able to read? And I said, yeah, they both went to college. They did very well. And he said, well, look, I want to have you tested for something. And so he brought a lady in a couple months later, and that's when I first heard the word dyslexia. And I didn't know what that was until, he gave me I would say a rudimentary understanding of what dyslexia was. But I knew one thing, and that one thing was the fact that I was not stupid or crazy like my mother had called me because I was giving her so much problems. So she would always call me stupid or dumb or, say all kind of horrible things because I was giving her a lot of trouble, man. And she was a single parent, and she was frustrated with me, and I couldn't perform like the rest of the kids were performing. And so I acted out, and that's where I heard the term dyslexia.
Mm. Wow. Man, when I say this, and I know you'll agree, thank God for teachers, right?
Oh, man, no doubt about it. Yeah. No, great teachers, though. Teachers who care, because there are a lot of teachers out here, man, that just, they don't care if they can see a kid struggling. They just want to get that kid out of their class and push him on. But there was someone, man, that cared about me, man, and there was a white man. This teacher was a white man, right, from a rural area in Monroe, Louisiana. And so it kind of opened my eyes up to how compassionate some people are. And so this whole notion of that, white people don't care about black people, and white people don't, I judge people by the character, man. I judge people how they treat me. I want to know you. I want to get to know you and see how you treat me, and more importantly, how you treat others. And that's how I judge people. So it was a white man that helped me, man.
You know, so you had someone help you identify what your challenges were. They actually gave you a diagnosis to what it was.
Absolutely.
When you got out of prison and were among the general population, you know, and you going about your day-to-day routine, how did you function? Were there services available to help you continue to deal with your being dyslexic, or did you have to just continue to struggle and build on your own? Or were there services out
yes,
there?
there was no services. And right now, I mean, you know, I get people all the time asking me, well, you know, my kid's been diagnosed. I need him remediated. Is there any way you could help me send my kid, get me to like direct my kid? And I'm like, you know, it's $125, man, an hour. It's $125 an hour to get remediated. And so for a very long time, man, after my release from prison, even though I attained my GED, it took me 4 years to get a GED. I worked my tail off to every day, man. I'm in prison. I'm putting down words, though, tomorrow, yesterday, Wednesday, Thursday. I'm a grown man, and I don't know how to spell Thursday, right, in prison. I'm 23 years old, and I can't spell Thursday. I'm seeing other men writing letters for them. Other men are asking, hey, man, bro, how you spell tomorrow, bro? You know, I mean, it's a huge illiterate population in the penal system. And so dyslexia, what dyslexics do is dyslexics drop out of school, right? Dyslexics drop out of school and they get into trouble. Many of them in the urban areas. That's why so many, I mean, you know, you see this huge population of black men in prison, right? Many of these men are illiterate, right? 52% of these people are illiterate. And so there's a huge number. Senator Bill Cass and I, a couple of years back, did it's one of the prisons that I was in. We screened 100 men and 100 women, and 52% of them were dyslexic, meaning reading on a second or third or fourth grade level. We're talking about grown adults. So our penal systems are replete with illiterate human beings. And, you know, when you say, well, why are we can't just label all black men? No. What happens is the white men who grew up in rural areas, say like Wyoming, right? What they do is they're dyslexic. They're going to find a way. See, the dyslexic brain is trying to find alternative paths to becoming successful. And so what we do in the black community, we're looking at drug dealers. We're looking at people breaking in houses and cars, and we say, okay, I can make money. But a white kid, if he's not growing up in that type of area, he's looking at getting on a tractor trailer and driving the tractor trailer. He can't read, though, tomorrow, but he can drive that tractor trailer. And so once the dyslexic finds his or her talent or gift, they're going to excel. And to answer your question more poignantly, when I got out of prison, man, no one helped me. I was mainly incarcerated. What I did was I studied the dictionary. I'd expand my vocabulary, but I still couldn't read properly, and I couldn't mix or segment words, right? Blending words together. I couldn't do that. Everything was based off memory. What I had memorized thousands of words, and so if I never came across that word, I couldn't spell it. So that was my challenge. You know, you have this shame of telling someone that you're dyslexic because people don't know what it is. People will laugh at you when they say, okay, he can't read, which I read fluently. I learned to read fluently, but through memorization. And it wasn't up until I testified before the United States Senate that a neuropsychologist, this guy's a neuropsychologist, Dr. Conway, he runs the NOW program. And he said, listen to me, I want to teach you how to read. I said, man, I know how to read. He said, no, Amir, you don't know how to read. He said, you just memorize words. And he was so right. So what he did was, he said, I want to teach you this program, and it's going to be for free. I'm like, for free? You're going to do it for free? He said, yes, usually it's $100, $125 an hour. For 18 months, I worked with that man on the computer. 1 hour a day. 1 hour a day for 18 months. And I said to myself, God, I didn't know any vowel sounds. I just didn't know how the language, I didn't understand it because the dyslexic brain, there's a shortage. It's like, let me explain it to you this way. You know, like if you walk into a building and there's a shortage in the lighting system, right? It's blinking, right? It's going off and on, off and on. It means there's a shortage in the wire, right?
Right.
So you have to go in and find where it's the short circuit at and fix it. So an electrician can go in there and fix that. So these people were able to go in and rebuild my pathways. It's called neuroplasticity, right? The brain can be rewired, man. The brain is such a beautiful thing, man. And so it can be rewired. You can build new pathways in your brain. And so I was able to understand the sounds because dyslexics it's very difficult for them to put the sounds with the letters, and those letters make those letters make sounds, man, and those sounds make words. The dyslexic brain is very difficult to grasp that, but they have techniques to get you to understand it. I said to myself, had someone caught me in the second or third, fourth, fifth grade and gave me this program, I would have never gone to prison, man. It was my inability to read that made me go to prison because it brings on self-imposed limitations, distorted thinking. So I never felt good about myself. So most kids grow up and say, I want to be a football player, I want to be I knew that I was going to be a drug dealer because I couldn't read. And, they'll tell you, well, if you want to do this, they'll tell you in school, like, you got to get an education. And I've been hearing that word for a very long time. And that was a frightening word to me, education, because I couldn't read. And so no one understood this. I hid this, right? And so, I knew I wanted to be a drug dealer. I used to pray and ask God, man, at a very young age, God, I want to be a drug dealer. Help me become a big-time drug dealer. I'm going to help kids. I'm going to do all the right stuff, God. Just please help me become a drug dealer. And I thought God was going to help me become a drug dealer. And so I had distorted thinking, man.
Man, I'm telling you, your story is powerful. And, you are truly, truly a blessing. And I know back in 2019, I believe it was, I think I read an article from you or a reference to you, and you were talking to some children. It may have been back in New Orleans, your hometown. And that was up north. Okay. And one of the things I remember you saying was, I remember one of the things I remember coming out the article was a person saying when they talked about children who suffer from dyslexia, talked about sometimes feeling like a victim. Did you ever at any point, when you knew your struggles with reading and you said you wanted to be a big-time drug dealer, did you ever feel like there was some sort of victim of something that just, were you a victim of poor teaching, poor parenting? Did you ever feel victimized, or did you just say, hey, I'm just not learning this and this is what I want to do with my life. I want to be a big-time drug dealer.
Yeah, well, I felt alienated very early on, around the third grade. I think it started setting in around the third grade. I knew that something was wrong. I knew that I was different. I knew that I couldn't do things the conventional way like the rest of the kids. So I knew that something was wrong, and hopelessness set into my life, despair. I was suffering, man, as a kid in silence, man, because reading incarcerates you. The inability to read, rather, incarcerates you at an early age. So I was incarcerated. I had a criminal thought at a very young age. So I had incarcerated myself way before I entered into a prison cell. I incarcerated myself with my thoughts, actions, and behavior. So thinking like a criminal eventually will lead you into a penal system. And yes, I felt victimized. I felt as though God had punished me. I felt as though my mother and father had punished me. Why me? Why couldn't I read? Right? Why was this happening to me and not someone else? So yes, I did. But it was the moment that I took responsibility for my life in prison, and I said to myself, listen, I have to do something about this. I have the power to choose. And I tell kids this all the time. The most powerful thing that you have in the world, man, is the power to choose. No one can take that from you. I could choose to get up in the morning and go to the gym at 5 o'clock, or I can choose not to go. But I choose to get up every morning at 5 a.m. to go exercise. I choose to study the dictionary. I choose to be an actor. I choose to be a model. I choose to be a role model. That's a choice, and so that's very, very powerful. And I don't think people understand the profundity of that, the power of choice.
Well, you also said in that article, and I remember, and I may not be quoting this correctly, but I think in some ways you said one of the things that teachers and parents could do when they have someone who may have a challenge with reading and may be suffering from dyslexia. You said a common language that can be impactful. What was that one word that you said you recall that you felt could be impactful and could help a child who's maybe struggling like you were?
I think one of the most powerful things that any teacher, mentor, parent can do to a kid, right, is speak life into that kid. Is to tell that kid you're still great. You're still great. If you can beat that into a kid's brain early on, irregardless of a kid's challenge, that kid would more than likely become successful because words are powerful. They germinate. They're like a seed. Once you plant it in the ground and you keep watering, it will germinate. So, telling kids positive affirmations, man, it's very, very important. You could do this. You're still somebody. You're gifted. God chose you. That's one of the things that I tell my nieces and nephews. I have a few nieces and nephews, and I tell them all that they're chosen by God. Tell them that. That's why you're smart. You're chosen by God. I said, do you realize why you're smart? Do you realize why? Yes, Uncle Millie. They call me Millie. Yes. I say, why? Because I'm chosen by God. And that's very powerful. I plant that seed. The Jewish people do that. I stole that from them. I don't know where they got it from, but I took that from them. They tell their children that they're chosen by God. Imagine if we would tell our children that they're chosen by God. That's what all my Jewish friends tell their children, that they're chosen by God.
Well, you mentioned in the article, and I thought it was powerful. It was powerful for me as a person reading it and who knows you to a certain extent. And when you mentioned the word love and encouragement, and how, and I think that's what you're saying, love and encouragement, and how those two words can change the trajectory of anyone who's struggling, and particularly someone who has the challenge of having dyslexia. So at any point now, when you look back on that time in your life, when you look back on it now, were there some signs that you know now that indicated that you definitely had this particular challenge when you were young?
Oh, absolutely. Now, educating myself on what was going on with me, man, being a student of it and constantly reading and getting information on it, and I'm scratching the surface on it. There are people that knowledge eclipse mine. But one of the signs is that if a kid is 5 years old, that kid should know every sound in the alphabet language, every sound. If the kid is in the third grade, that kid should be reading fluently, right? And so I didn't know any sounds, first, second, third, fourth, fifth grade. I didn't know any of my sounds. And so there were red lights growing. I can tell a dyslexic kid right off, that kid is withdrawn. If you get him in a learning circle, like if I go into a classroom, here's what I normally do in classes, right? When teachers allow me to come in, particularly in the second and third grade, I like to go in and I say, listen, guys, here's what we're going to do. If you guys choose to, we're going to have like a little spelling test, very small words. Oh, yeah. And so I said, if you don't want to do it, you can just go in the corner. And you might see 2 or 3 kids going to the corner. Those kids, because see, learning is exciting for children. Children are very competitive when they're young. And so they want to be the first one to spell, right? And so when that happened to me in my class, I would always veer off. And so I could spot those kids. And mainly 99% of the time, they're the kids that are reading poorly. And so the signs are all there, man. And it's very, very simple. Very, very easy. So again, man, you pull a kid to the side, that kid should know it sounds. I know kids that I've worked with, and when we opened up the dyslexia center, my center, the Baraka Dyslexic Learning Center, we had some kids, 6th, 7th grade, didn't know their sounds, didn't know the basic phonic sounds of the alphabet. And so that is a sign. I'm like, oh my God, why haven't a teacher put this in your IEP? Teachers are just pushing these kids through school, man. They don't care. it's awful. It really is. I beseech people right now, if you don't have any resources, do not send your kid to, don't have kids, because if you send them to these public schools, more than likely they're going to fail, because the school systems are horrible, man. They're just passing kids on, right? Kids can't read, kids can't write, and they're just passing them on.
What do you think, in your opinion, and I'm someone who, was 23 years old before you realized what your challenges were. What do you think are some of the repercussions or consequences when someone who has dyslexia is not diagnosed?
Alcoholism, suicide, crime, homelessness. Those are the four main things that I could tell you right off the top. Did you see those things in your future at 23 before? I'm sorry?
Did you kind of see that as your future if you hadn't been diagnosed?
Oh, absolutely. Well, the thing was that, I lived in prison for 4 years. It was my 4-year reprieve in a boys' correctional facility, man. I lived amongst a bunch of illiterate men, right? And men who shied away from going to class, going to school, men who had the opportunity either to go into the field and work a half a day or go to school a half a day. I chose to go to school a half a day and go in the field a half a day. So there are people avoiding school altogether. And so if it had not been for me learning to read, I would be back in prison. Reading was the gateway to freedom. Man, listen, do you realize, what people don't realize is reading comes natural for a lot of people. They're just gifted. Thank God that they can read. No matter if they come from a poor family or educated family, right? They just read because they just phonetically they just pop on, right? It is such a gift to learn to read, because when you read, you can travel, you can imagine. So not being able to read fleeces you of the ability to dream and imagine, because it's not possible. When you pick up a book, right, and you read about England or you read about South Africa, right, you're dreaming, you're envisioning. But when you can't read, you can't see that. You visualize through reading. It's a very powerful thing. It isn't. I understand now why the slave master never wanted the Negro to learn to read, because it's complete freedom. I don't care. I was in prison, and I was a free man. I was on the street, and I was an incarcerated man. I was out of prison well before I got out of a physical prison. I got out. I was completely extricated from prison while in prison, because I was able to read. I was free. I was able to dream and then visualize. But you can't do that when you can't read. It's an impediment.
So what are some of the techniques you use, Ameer? You still have dyslexia, and you're older now. What are some of the techniques you use to make sure to in your reading and your comprehension and everything? I mean, you still have it. You never cure from it. You just learn to work around it and work through it. So how are you doing that? What techniques do you use, and what would you share with parents to help their child work through it?
Well, first and foremost, if a child is dyslexic, that child needs to be remediated. And because what happens is, if the kid does not get remediated, that reading gap gets broader and broader and broader. Mm-hmm. And the broader it gets, the more hopelessness falls in, because at around the third grade, a kid really begins to understand that, hey, man, I'm not reading. However, if a kid who's dyslexic and that kid is remediated and he or she is back on a benchmark, the most important thing that person can do is read. Man, I am an avid reader. I'm an avid reader, and if I come across a word, have the dictionary on my phone. I look up every word that I come across. If I don't know it, I look it up. Every word. I do not allow a word to come across my path that I don't know. You have to become hungry for learning, man. You have to be a lover of learning. I've become a lover of learning because I talk to all kinds of people now, politicians. I talk to educators. I talk to everybody. I do lectures. So I don't want to be in these settings and not know what I'm talking about, right? Or if someone says a word and I'm oblivious of it. No, that won't happen. That will not happen to me. So I've become a student of the dictionary. I love the dictionary. I love learning. And so, I tell anyone, man, you just keep reading. It's like brushing your teeth in the morning. You can't stop.
Yeah, I asked you that question, Amir, because of what you currently do now in your life. You're an Emmy-nominated actor. You're on several popular TV shows, and one of those, well, I mean, probably both of them, I'm sure, have demanding filming, and they come with scripts. And I was just wondering, how do you manage the fast pace of production with scripts? And did you ever feel the need, or have you? I mean, it's probably well known. What do you say to writers and directors in reference to, you having dyslexia, but you are a pretty good actor? As a matter of fact, I say this jokingly, but I know I told you this before. My wife was like, "You interviewing who?" Ameer Baraka. She said, "That's the dude who's on the team." I said, "Yeah." She said, "I don't like him," but no, she said a joke. She likes you.
Yeah, nobody likes my character. Yeah, nobody likes my character because everybody loves Zach, and I bully him all the time.
Right. So she said, "Don't interview him." I don't like that. I said, "Well, I'm interviewing him, not whoever that dude is he's playing." So yeah, but he has a history, meaning Mr. Perry has a history of fast-paced, scripts and stuff.
Listen.
Yes.
Hey, man, with Tyler Perry, man, it's fast-paced, man.
Right.
It is extremely fast-paced. This guy wants you to know your stuff, and you got to know it. What I do is, man, when I get scripts, the average person can go through a script really quick. It takes me more time, right? It takes me more time to process things. My processing skills are not as fast as some other people. And so I will let my agent know, listen, let the producers know that I'm dyslexic. So I need my script maybe a week before someone else or 4 days before someone else, right? Don't give me something right off the cuff. I need it way before time. And sometimes there are these sudden changes, right? And like last season, it worked where you get these little breaks between the time where you got maybe 4 or 5 hours. It's something totally new. You got this 4 or 5 hours to memorize it, and so I've gotten good at it. But when you like with Tyler Perry, I like to get my scripts a week before time. I want to get it way ahead of time so I can really study and process it and understand it. And sometimes, man, if I'll call someone up if I don't know something. I'll call someone up, man. What a person has to do is, here's the freedom that I have. I am not ashamed of who I am. I had nothing to do with this. This is the way that God created me, right? It's like a person being handicapped. I have one arm or one leg. Listen, that's not your fault. It's the way you were created. So when you try to hide that or you're ashamed about that, the world sees that. But when you're open about it, you're free from it. So I'm completely free, And so everybody on the set, they know that I'm dyslexic. All, my co-stars, they know that I'm dyslexic.
Where do you go to? How you have a community? You have a nonprofit organization. Where do you go to educate, to continue to educate yourself on dyslexia? Is there like a particular researcher you go to, or is it you just Googling and reading yourself, or do you have
there are people. Yeah, there's an organization, a team of women called Decoding Dyslexia. It's an organization called Decoding Dyslexia, and I follow a gang of people on Twitter, right? And they're always posting the latest information. And man, listen, man, you can just read about this stuff, man. I mean, anything you want to know, you can pick up. It's in your hand. technology is amazing. I can find out about anybody through picking up this phone and reading.
Wow.
And of course, I've read several books. I mean, Dr. Sally Shaywood over at Yale University, we had partnered up, and she just given me so much information. She gave me her book, and her book is just, I mean, she's like the guru of dyslexia. And so I've read her book several times, and we talk. And, Yale, that's a prestigious university, so they have all the information and all the data. So if I need to know something, I'll call up the Shaywoods and say, man, they can regurgitate this stuff like no one else can.
You walk proudly in the fact that you have dyslexia. You walk proudly in it. You don't run from it. But there are a lot of people who may have that challenge who are not as confident with you, even they may have overcome it, to share that. What would you tell them to say, hey, listen, you don't have to be ashamed of it, and if you need to have, I'm gonna say, accommodations, for lack of a better term, you should reach out for that. What would you say to them to get them that level of confidence to champion themselves and advocate for themselves?
The more you talk,
to do it easily.
Yeah. Well, the thing is that the more you talk about something, man, you set yourself free. If you hide it, you put yourself in a prison. If you talk about it, you free yourself. And so that's what I've learned. That's for people who have been molested, people who have been raped. When you talk about what took place, you free yourself. Don't hide it, man. Tell the world so you can prevent someone else from being raped or molested, or people who are put into this self-imposed prison because they can't read or write. Say it, man. You know what? I'm dyslexic. I was in the store the other day, and so I had given a girl $5 for something that cost $3.03. Right? It cost $3.03. So I gave her a 5, and what I realized was that, hold on, I don't want 97 cents back. I have 3 cents in my pocket. I said, so excuse me, ma'am, here's 3 cents. She said, I can't give that to you. I'm dysgraphic. She said, I have dyscalculus, right? Dyscalculus. And when she said that, immediately I understood. Well, dyscalculus is when you're counting, you can't count. She can't count. She couldn't count. So when she told me that, I immediately understood. I said, okay, it's perfectly fine. Give me the change. But she was bold enough to let me know. And when she said that, I understood that. See, people will understand you if you tell them what you're dealing with, more than likely. Now, some you got a-holes all around the world, and so some people might say, well, you should learn to count. But, I understand it. And so she did her part by letting me know, hey, I have dyscalculus. I don't understand. I'm not going to be able to give you the change back. But she, from the computer, she just had it in her mind what the computer said give me back. And I'm like, wow. I mean, that was profound to me, But hey, people have dyscalculus.
Do you share those type of stories with cast members, with parents who come to your association? Do you share those type of stories? Because it's a lot like when someone says, now I just share this information. I used to train landlords on fair housing law, and one of the things I would always tell people is that a person with disability, that's one of those protected classes, and they're easily discriminated against. And I always would tell people that you're only like a triple way down the flight of stairs or getting hit by a car in a car accident to joining that minority population. And a lot of times people think, that makes sense. And I'm wondering, do people get that aha moment from you when you share stories like that on your own life about some challenges you have, and that helps them understand, and maybe you begin to see that moment you shared with them has been impactful in the way they communicate with others, whether on the set or in your organization or when you go make speeches in places. Do you see those aha moments in people when you share examples like that?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, like when I talk to some cast members one of my cast members, I'm on this TV show, A House Divided, and it's on the All Black channel. and I was able to work with Lisa Ray and them, and so they really, we sit down and we, at lunch we talk about certain things, and people are completely unaware of this, and so when you start telling them about it, they're like, oh wow, I you know what, I heard this girl, she was like that, and I thought that girl was dumb, man, and so there's these aha moments, and what I like to do is I like to go, like, sometimes I go up, I pull up in the projects, different hoods, I just pull up in the projects and see, like when I see women sitting out on the porch or whatever, 3-4 women sitting out, I start running to them, telling them, hey, listen, my name is Ameer Baraka, can I share some with you guys? Like, yeah. Well, you that guy on TV? Yeah. Because I'm always on the news here. And so I'm like, I want to share with you guys what dyslexia is. And maybe your son or daughter has it, or maybe a neighbor has it. So I want to give you guys some understanding on what dyslexia is. And because most parents, man, they're very frustrated. And, they start calling kids names, right? And that's one of the things you cannot do.
Right.
People do that, man. They're, particularly, man, when you're uneducated and you're frustrated, right? You call your kids names, man, when they're not performing. So that's mainly why I do it in the projects. Or like sometimes I'm in Walmart. I may go in Walmart to get some rice or something or whatever, and I see women pushing their kids in the basket, or grandparents pushing their children in the basket, and I introduce myself. I said, can I ask your kid something? Oh, yeah, right, because the kid is there. I said, son, young lady, what does that say on that can? I'm trying to see if these kids can read. I mean, it's important. It's important, man. And these are my people, man. These are my people, and I'm concerned about them. So I do that, man. I do some weird stuff, man, because I'm concerned about kids learning to read. That's a big thing, man. Kids must learn to read. If you learn to read, you got a fighting chance in this world.
Well, I want to say I'm proud of you, brother. I mean, you were the data, the statistic. You were unable to read by 4th grade, and you ended up in prison. But you didn't let that become your prison of life. And if you could talk to young people, I'm saying young people because that's what you were. You were 23, and you were younger than that as a 3rd grader. If you could talk to young people and they can hear you right now, what words of encouragement can you say to them? They may be struggling with reading, doing math. They can have any number of anxieties and stress. And what would you say to them as far as encouragement to let them know that it can get better, and they can get better on the other end, and they can get better tomorrow if you just believe? What can you say to some of them?
Whatever you do, please stay in school. Please stay in school. And if you got to learn bit by bit by bit, stay in school. Do not drop out of school. Do not get in gangs. Do not start smoking marijuana. Get a dream and hold on to it. I don't care if you can't read. I tell kids this all the time. I couldn't read, but I held on to a dream. I held on to it. I fought through it. I denied myself for selling dope while I was broke, living in my car. I denied myself of those things. I looked past all those things that I wanted. And now I finally got it. If they can delay their gratification, they're going to win. If they can get rid of their shame, they're going to win. Just stay in school. Whatever you do, stay in school. Keep working. I know you can't count right now, but keep trying. Never give up, man. That's a cliche. That's something people have been saying, and some people say that's antiquated. But man, listen, there is so much power in that. Discipline determines destiny. If you keep trying, I guarantee you're going to succeed.
Well, brother, you're a good example of that. Before I let you go, I just want to make sure that you get the opportunity to share some information, some wonderful things that are going on in your life. You wouldn't mind sharing, whatever it is. Is it upcoming movies, upcoming books? You got some speaking engagements. We want to hear all that good stuff going on with you, man.
Right. Well, as I said again, just won the Emmy for Best Story. Working on the screenplay for that.
Absolutely.
People are interested in doing the movie of that. This movie is going to be so profound, man. The screenplay is done. It needs some rewrites, but got some producers who are interested in doing it. And listen, man, you talk about a dark story, but then success. It's a dark story, but then success break out of it. So, we have 60 million dyslexics in this country. And so I have a team of people, white and black, that know me in the country and that will go out and support this film. Also, I got a TV show coming out next month called A House Divided on the Black Channel. We've got 10 episodes coming out. I'm in 8 of them. Production, Danny Garcia is the showrunner. I got Tyler Perry's show coming out as a teamer. Season 2 comes out. I think that comes out in March or April. We're going to go back, I heard, next month or in February to shoot season 3. Just wrapped on Tales of the Walking Dead. What else? I got a new show coming out with Felicia Rashad. We're gonna start that next year. That's a Danny Garcia production. That's going to be with AMC. And I got a new book out called Undiagnosed: The Ugly Side of Dyslexia, and that's on Amazon. And got some speaking engagements coming out in Dallas. IDA Dyslexia Conference. It's going to be in Dallas. Then I leave there and I go to Nebraska. I'll be speaking in Nebraska. And so in February, I'll be speaking in Nebraska. So, got some great things out, and, I'm blessed, and, just I'm pushing ahead, man. The thing is to see this film. That's the ultimate dream. I've been nominated as an Emmy. Got the nomination. I've got an Emmy Award. Now the thing is to get this film done, and, and that'll be it, man.
Well, it's a powerful. You have a powerful story. It's a story of that I'm sure many people can identify with, and I wish you the best of luck. I'm praying for you. You know that. I champion everything you do, because I know you got good and great intentions. You do things for others. So thank you again for taking time out of your busy schedule. We just heard a little bit of your schedule. I know you were being modest. We know it's more than that, but thank you for sharing what you did.
Yeah.
So I want to thank you for doing that. And man, I hope I get you back soon to talk about your book.
Absolutely. Well, hopefully
the author's corner to talk about the book.
Yeah, hopefully, we get that taken care of. I'm going to be moving next year, man. I'm buying a nice home down in Atlanta. I love it, man. I'll be doing a lot of work in Atlanta. I got a lot of projects coming up, man. And I don't want to sound boastful, but I got some projects coming up in Atlanta, and so I'll be doing a lot of work there in Atlanta. So I said to myself, I may as well buy a home. So I'm going to pack up this year and move down to Atlanta.
Well, let everybody know where you are right now. You're moving to Atlanta, but where are you moving from?
I'm in the dirty South, man.
There you go.
I'm in New Orleans. As you get New Orleans, man. New Orleans, bro. You heard me?
And as I say at the end of all my shows, God bless, peace and love.
Shalom, shalom, shalom.